Welcome to the Creative Dopcast, where we dive deep into the essential questions about how to become a director of photography in England and Europe. I'm a cinematographer who tries to learn and grow with these conversations, and I want to share this knowledge with you. We dive deep into behind the scenes of the DP life on and off set and ask all the interesting questions that usually don't get asked. Enjoy the conversation. On this episode, we have Ola Shoyinka, a big upcoming DP from Ireland, originally now living in London. His work goes from narrative to music videos and commercials. Welcome to the show, Ola Shoyinka. How are you, man? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been a busy couple of weeks, so it's nice to be chilling out today, and the weather's nice as well. So
Yeah, I get you. The last day has been really warm and everything, so it's nice. Um, especially like when you're like walking outside, it's nice to be able to not freeze to death, right?
absolutely, absolutely. Like the summer's coming, we can have some fun days out, and
Yeah,
fun days on shoot without freezing our asses off. So yeah.
that's amazing. Okay, I just want to lead into the first question. How did you got into filmmaking?
So basically, when I first went into uni, I was really into martial arts and kickboxing. Um, and a way to make money was by being a sort of martial arts extra on a TV show that was shooting in Dublin, where I grew up. And when I went on this TV show as an extra and basically human furniture, it was my first time seeing like a film set in action. First time seeing a director, DP, everyone all involved making this really cool thing. And I did it for 6 months, and by the end of it, I didn't want it to stop. So after the fact, I was sort of confused. I was doing advertising, which I didn't really love in uni. And decided that summer that after I finished doing the extra stuff to sort of do an internship at a film production company. Again, didn't really know anything, had no experience, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
Um, and after I finished that sort of internship, um, my mom sort of encouraged me to try film school because she could see that it's something that I was really interested in. So I applied for like a very small community film school back in Dublin. I got in, and over the next 3 years, sort of found kind of my voice and kind of found my interest in film. And at first, it was directing, and that turned into cinematography. Shot our graduation film in our final year, and after I graduated, I kind of knew I really wanted to be a cinematographer. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but knew I wanted to to do that, and that led to me obviously doing a bit of camera training outside of university, but on the side shooting like a lot of short films, shooting music videos, just shooting anything I could, shooting my partner, and just trying to create. And then after that, decided after a couple months to move to London, and then just been chasing it ever since. Obviously, before that, I was interested always in images. Obviously, as a kid, I was really into cartoons, but I also was really into films. I love looking at images, and then also just I have just flashbacks of like sitting in the car and just looking outside and just seeing images of trees or the sun, or I don't know if you can relate to like just having memories of a nice sunset or even just really visceral moments in your life with your friends and family. But in terms of did I know exactly what film was before sort of that first set experience in university? Not at all. I sort of just learned it. I didn't grow up with it, or I wasn't like 6 years old and knowing I wanted to be a cinematographer straight away. It was a lot of time to figure it out.
yeah, fair enough. Um, did you take pictures a lot when you were a kid? Did you have a camera, or did you had some hands-on experience with similar medium like photography or anything else?
Honestly, not really. what I might have experience for is like telling stories to myself. So I was
Okay.
like and this is why I thought I wanted to be more of a director than a DP at the time. Because I was an only child and I lived in like the middle of Ireland, and I essentially had no friends. I was just by myself. So what I used to do to keep myself entertained was I would like create these stories and I would play every character. Um, and it's
Interesting.
obviously something that you do as like a 6 year old, 7 year old, 8 year old. But yeah, it kind of it. I was just really interested in stories at the time and how those stories would, I guess, make you feel. So no, I didn't really have any experiences with cameras because I couldn't really afford one, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't dare ask my family or my mom at the time to buy one. It kind of all that sort of stuff came later.
Okay, that's interesting. Where you filmed a lot of stuff digitally, I saw like a lot of your work, and but you also filmed a lot of stuff with film. How do you define the difference between film and digital for you?
I guess the main difference there's a difference in terms of how you shoot with it, and then there's the difference in terms of how you see it. In terms of how you see it, I feel like there's a certain level of texture, and the only way I can describe it is it's like richness, deepness, and that is burnt onto like the film and the image that I just feel is very difficult to replicate. I think you can get close, um, but it's something that's very unique that with digital it's sort of like feels like a pancake and then you're just putting pancakes on top of each other. But with film it feels like it's all like smashed together, like it's all ingrained into each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
uh, but then obviously in terms of the shooting of it, when done properly at least, because I know there's been times where even on film we're still trying to move things quick, but you can on digital, obviously you can move faster, you can shoot for longer, you can be a little bit you can just be faster. While with film overall, it just takes a little bit more you need to be a bit more methodical with your process. So,
Yeah.
like taking meter readings, and obviously the first AC also needs to know exactly his distance markings, and just knowing where actors are going to be in a scene, going from A to B.
Yeah.
Um, Ideally, you want to be a little bit more organized, but that's not to say that you still can't be free flowing. I was reading about Anora, and that was shot on 35 millimeter, and um, I've heard that the DP was also very like not random, but very free with decisions. But yeah, that's kind of how I see the differences.
Yeah. Which one is your preferred medium, or would you not say that you prefer both the same?
It's a good question. Preferred medium. I think the true answer is, and I say this for a lot of the questions people ask me, but it really does depend on the project.
Yeah.
Because there are certain projects where, film like maybe 16 millimeter or 35 millimeter really does make sense. Um,
Yeah.
but then there are just films where like, we're shooting a film all set at night on a certain budget, um, with limited resources. Maybe shooting on a Venice 2 with 12,800 ISO just makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Hundred
Um,
percent.
so yeah, it really does depend on a lot of different factors. But if you just had to tell me objectively, like I think obviously like film when shot really nicely, like I think I would probably choose that.
Yeah. And you've recently shot a film that was both shot uh, on digital and on film, and how both of those mix together. Can you talk a little bit about that? What the process there is like? You're thinking about how to match those together, and um, if there are any specific things you did to kind of uh, put both of those together to match them really well?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, the with that film, the idea wasn't necessarily to make it super matched together. I think we were still trying to express different things when, scenes were shot in 16 and scenes were shot digitally. Um I think obviously like the film we just shot deals a lot with like the past trauma, and not always obvious trauma. Sometimes it's just small senses of trauma, senses of feeling alone. And in those moments, maybe we felt like 16 millimeter was the moment to go there, while then for other moments, digital felt like it made the most sense. Um, Overall, there is even on the digital stuff, there is the intention to still make it feel quite filmic, texturial, grainy, almost like you can touch it. Like that's like the goal. And there is the intention, whether we can or not, we're still in conversation, but there's the intention to maybe scan some of the digital stuff to film to also help add to that, pancake feeling that I was talking about earlier on. Um, but yeah, like overall, like, there are things that, I try to do, like sometimes shooting purposefully on a deeper stop. Uh, Working with our colorist who helped us create a LUT for it ahead of time to help us get some of those deeper, more muted, filmic colors, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of what I was saying
and
that.
and working with the colorist, preparing like before a project, for a project basically. How What kind of things do you need to discuss there really? Like, I personally have never really worked with the colorist before a shoot to prep a lot beforehand. What kind of discussions do you have to have there for all the people that haven't really done that before?
Yeah, I mean, so like beforehand, I sort of treat it like any other sort of member of crew, whether it's my director or my gaffer or my AC. I kind of tell them what the story is about. I would make a sort of mood board or lookbook, um, that would have strong references over what we're trying to do. Um, and because you can't, in a lot, you can't be super specific. Like you can't be like, I want grain and elation, and it has to still sort of be broad. But what it really does do is it pushes you in a certain direction. Um, so I take all that information to the colorist, and at the end of the day, they're the expert. I'm just like, hey, this is what I want. What can you create? And we'll go back and forth.
So
Um,
are you doing like test shoots and bringing that to the colorist, or how do you
yes,
figure
of
out the lot
course.
together?
Absolutely. So obviously you remember the day you helped us
Yeah.
in Shoot Blue. So obviously I'll take all my references, give it to them. I'll have hopefully some footage, interior, exterior, lit in somewhat different ways, and then they'll take that footage and they'll create a sort of look, and then they'll tell me it's this sort of the direction.
Yeah.
Obviously, you get more detailed the more time you have.
Yeah.
Um, but that's kind of the intention. And then other times I'll also create LUTs, not just for look. Sometimes I'll have like a basic 709 Rec 709 looking LUT, but
Yeah.
maybe I want more contrast, or I want it like one stop underexposed or two stops underexposed because I want to preserve, highlight detail, or you know what I mean? So I'll
Yes.
shoot it two stops underexposed and then expose for that, and it'll give me some sort of protection depending on the situation. So it really
Yeah.
just depends on what I'm looking for.
That's interesting. Yeah. And printing digital on film. I've never heard that before. This project before. Is that? Can you give us some insight from what that kind of like looks like? Like, is it literally you just give them the footage of what you shot and they what can you do with it? What is there
Yeah, so
different things you can do with it?
so I'm not exactly a expert on this, but
No, obvious.
from
Yeah.
what I understand, it basically you got your digital footage, and then you essentially scan your digital footage onto film, and then bring it back into digital. And what
Yeah.
it does is essentially it sort of gives you that smashy, mushy effect that I talk about that film sort of gives you.
Yeah,
Um,
the film look
it
basically.
also it also gives a heaviness to the colors because you know on film, like what, for example, green when exposed, maybe right or slightly underexposed, it has that like deepness, dark color. Same with
Yeah.
red, same with yellow, same with blue. It kind of gives this to your digital footage, um, plus the texture, which will also not feel like it's a layer on top. It will hopefully feel a bit more like it's ingrained within the footage.
Yeah.
Um, and then you take that footage and it's still sort of in like a log format or a slightly light 709 format, and then you give it back to your colorist for them to finish in the grade.
So you color grade that final output image then again
Exactly.
for like the final touches at the end, right? Or it does
Exactly.
like yeah, okay. I
Exactly.
see.
You get your initial footage and then you grade it into something like 709. Then you
Yeah.
bring it in and scan it. Then you bring it back, and then you, like you say, your final touches.
That's very cool. Very interesting. Um, yeah, there were a lot of technical questions, but all of the people I've talked with that work with you before really admire your way of organization. Can you give me a little bit of just tell me a little bit how you organize for a shoot?
Um, yeah, that could be a long conversation. So basically, it always stems from obviously like your initial conversation with my director, where you're just sort of figuring out the script, figuring out the story. For me, that's where like everything begins.
Yeah,
Uh, and for me, I use this app that you can get online called Milanote.
yeah,
It's essentially the same as Drive, but it's more visually nicer to just look at because it sort of spreads everything out quite easily. And I basically compartmentalize everything on that app. So for
yeah,
example, like I'm looking at a job that I'm getting prepared to shoot very soon, and in it I have, stuff that I need to watch specifically that the director has given me. I've got our references of films overall that I would be watching or looking just, for inspiration.
yeah,
I've got my documents folder where I'll put obviously the scripts, treatments, call sheets, shot lists, anything like that. I'll have my lighting section for references for lighting to tell or communicate with my gaffer. And then there's other categories such as framing, movement. Like it can get as granular as you really want it to be. Same with
yeah,
camera settings. And basically within each um, sort of box. I try to, keep things as organized as possible. I try to have a sort of methodology over what I'm trying to do because I want sort of each decision to matter and to mean something. On set, I like to be quite instinctive and just be like, if it's A or B, let's go at B because it just felt right. But I like that instinctiveness to be motivated by the preparation earlier on. Do you know what I mean?
yes,
Um,
100%.
because yeah.
Are you a calendar person? Do you have like a physical calendar or a digital calendar in your phone? How do
Yeah,
you organize yourself?
I'm more of a digital calendar, so I've got everything. I've got sort of two calendars. Um, Basically my Google Drive, and then I've got a different calendar specific for like my jobs.
I see. So you
Yeah,
separate
have
them.
everything laid out there.
I'm
Absolutely,
trying
yeah.
to figure all this stuff out at the moment. What are the best ways to do stuff? Um, but yeah, that's very interesting. And uh, when you come close to a long shoot where you know you're going to be very busy, how do you prep yourself in your free time? Like at your home, do you pre-cook? Do you put stuff? What do you put in motion that you know that you can be comfortable shooting and come home and be like, don't have much to do?
That's a very good question. Obviously, like if it's a decently budgeted production, hopefully they've got food ready for us to eat, good food too. Um, but otherwise. So I'm lucky enough to have a partner that sometimes when she can, she would help me like, have food maybe when I come back, or breakfast set up. Um, but I think to be honest, like in terms of prep for a shoot, I think the best thing I can do is prep my body and my mind. So like I try and go to the gym or I try and exercise as much as I can. I love playing sports as well, so I'll do that, and that sort of helps my mental state.
Yeah.
If I'm in prep, we're having countless meetings and there's politics going on, and there's just your brain is turning into mush.
Yeah.
There's nothing like playing a sport for 2 hours to just absolutely make your brain forget about everything.
What sports are you playing?
Basketball, for the most part,
Ah,
is
interesting. I didn't know that. It's so fun. Like I get to learn like so much about you more. Like when you're on set together, you mostly just talk about the lighting or the actual stuff that's going on, but not really the personal stuff. But it's so cool to get to know like you a bit more like personal and everything. That's um and you are, I would like, from my past experience with you working, you're a really good leader. You stand up for your team. What kind of, like, how do you view leadership in film in the position as DOP?
Yeah, I think leadership is number one, trying your best to lead by example, but I think ultimately it's humility as well, and knowing when to take guidance from your team, and knowing when to put your team forward and put the spotlight on them and sort of empower them, and give them the responsibility to do what they do at the best of their capabilities. Um, like I like to think that we are all leaders in our own separate, you know, categories. Like for
Yeah.
example, so I've worked with you mostly as DP Spark relationship, but when we're on set, I feel like you know what to do with those tools better than I do. So I sort of explain what I want, but I'm trusting in you to
Mm.
make what we want happen. You know what I mean? And it's the same with my first AC or a gaffer um, whatever the role is, grip. It's ultimately empowering people to be the best that they can be and giving them the best environment that's within my control because it's not always within my control. I can't control the production, I can't control the locations and the environments that we're in, but the best I can do is at least the immediate person that you deal with, which usually is me. I hope that's a positive experience, while at the
Yeah.
same time aspiring to get the best result possible.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's very. I see that. I see that when working with you, you are really looking out for your people around you. When something goes wrong, you're stepping in for your crew. It's really like I've spoken to a lot of people, and like a lot of people said, you are like the person they try to imitate when they are being on set, kind of like doing DP work and everything. Like it's really good. Um, what is something outside of filmmaking in your life that brings you joy? Maybe outside of sports. We've already discovered sports.
Yeah, I was about to say football. Outside of filmmaking that brings me joy, I mean, like there's my partner, my wife,
Yeah.
me, just you know, family, and I think in terms of a particular thing, I think food. I love food. I love eating. I
Mm.
love
What kind of food do you
cooking,
like?
all sorts. I don't want to be like Italian or
Yeah,
Mexican. I think it's just I like making things like
yeah,
similar to like filmmaking. Like I like putting this selection of lens and
yeah.
this camera and this filter. It's similar to food. I like maybe I'll use this meat and I'll use this vegetable and I'll use it.
Experimenting a little bit and stuff, just trying to make it better than be the bit before.
Exactly, exactly. That's a really good point to put it. And it's always just nice, even times when the food isn't maybe amazing. It's still nice that
Yeah,
I've created this thing, and yeah, like you said, you learn from it, and you get better the next time.
Yeah. And you grew up in Dublin. How differently do you think, like, do you experience the film industry in London?
I think the biggest difference is sort of, I think I would consider myself at this sort of medium tier, you know, there isn't too much of a medium tier in in Dublin. So like as you sort of trying to work through the ranks, um, it's hard because in Dublin, it's either like you're shooting as a DP at least, as a serious DP, it's you're either shooting Netflix or a top end, high end television, or you're at the bottom shooting like just trying to get started shooting like zero budget stuff. There isn't this sort of middle tier
Yeah.
world as much, and I feel like London there's just more opportunity
Yeah.
to not only just work but just to meet collaborators, to meet ambitious individuals like yourself that want to rise up together. I feel like there's more of that sort of scene over here.
You started really as a DP. Now, have you said you've done some crewing before, but you went relatively quickly to DPing. Would you what would you say? Do you sometimes regret not being able to like crew a little bit more to see like other people work, or do you feel comfortable being directly in DP, in the big shoes of a DP?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think if I could do it again, I would have maybe tried to spark a little bit more. I would have probably went down lighting because I traineed for about 6 months on various productions in camera,
Yeah,
and I didn't exactly love camera too much. But I feel like when I did start DPing, like everyone does at the start of DPing, you're sort of everything. You're the camera assistant, you're the gaffer.
yeah,
And I really did enjoy the lighting aspect of trying to place the light where I wanted and to put the right diffusion. And, I liked the ownership. So I think if I did do it again, I would have maybe loved to spark and potentially gaff for some people, like you said, to sort of see how other people do it. But at the same time, I sort of have this philosophy of yes, it's cool to see how other people work, but I think we're all our own person.
yeah,
The way you get up and carry out your day is different to the way I get up and carry out my day. And I like to think the same with cinematography, like the way if we walked into both our rooms, I think we would light it and shoot it in two very separate ways. And I don't think either way is better. I just think it's where we are in our lives. That's kind of like how we would go about it.
yes,
And
100%.
I think if anything, it's life that sort of develops you as a cinematographer. I've heard of so many other um, people that that haven't necessarily worked as a gaffer or a spark or lighting
Yeah,
trainee, um, and they sort of went straight into DPing, and a lot of those sparking trainee experiences are already handled by your gaffer. And a
yeah,
lot of those technical things that you would learn are already handled by your first and second AC. And really what you bring is your point of view and your take on the story.
yeah.
And I don't know if you necessarily learn those things as a lighting trainee or a camera trainee, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. And you seem to be going like doing well with it so far. Um,
So,
the the projects you shoot look really good, and I feel like you just learn in the position that you want to be in directly, right? So you don't take the time to learn to be this to then transition into that to then learn again, complete a new thing. You just start with the thing you want to be. That's
yeah, absolutely. I kind of remember being back in Dublin and being like, I think I just want to focus on being this and
yeah,
everything I looked at in terms of online or learning and getting information from other people, it was always just focusing on how do I be a better cinematographer and and when I first started working with crews, it went from how do I be a better cinematographer to how do I be a better, like you said, leader and be a better communicator and better organizer and delegator, because that is probably 70-80% of the job is just managing people, and I'm not always successful with it for sure, but it's just getting better at it and then being in the position and putting other people in the position to be able to create magic, hopefully.
Yeah. You got signed by an agency. Uh, can you talk a little bit about how that kind of happened? The decision that you made, why you decided to accept that deal, and what you kind of hope to get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I think getting represented by an agency was like my a goal of mine when I came to London. I think the biggest thing, there's so many advantages that come out of it, from them getting you work, from them advocating for you, from them reaching out to directors for you, for them basically doing a lot of things in the background so you can sort of just focus on the creative. Um, but I guess the most important thing I felt that I would get, even if they didn't do those other things, was just legitimacy. I think it's hard trying to make your way up into this world and stand out, I guess.
Yeah.
'Cause there is so many amazing DPs. So I felt getting an agent, and if I reached out or someone reached out to me or came across me and seeing that I was repped, kind of was like, all right, this guy's safe. These agencies think he's safe. Let's kind of go with him, or let's start the conversations with him. So that's kind of the main thing in terms of what I think I get out of it, and why I wanted it.
Did they approach you or did you approach them?
I approached them multiple times.
Yeah.
So it was like I approached them originally like 2 years ago, I think. Didn't get a response, and then I approached them again like last year, and I got kind of a response, and then
Yeah.
I approached them and another agency, and then that's when conversations started to happen. And then by the start of this year, after I finished that project, Yellow Car, um, conversations seemed to ramp up, and then basically beginning of February, end of January, things got sorted.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty big step for a cinematographer to become like to get signed by an agency. Um, do you? Yeah, I feel like you're gonna get probably like some bigger stuff out of it, and hopefully some bigger paid projects soon. Did you experience that you shoot a project with a client and then they take the film and basically color grade it in a way that you were not expecting to, and then basically your project don't doesn't turn out that well?
Yeah, 100% yes, all the time. Very, very much. I think there is no way to avoid that, unfortunately. Um, it's as cinematographers, because I know you're a cinematographer as well. At the end of the day, our biggest job is to sort of service the director and service their vision, right?
Yeah.
Um, the only mode of prevention I can think of is in either working with a director that has the same sort of taste and vision as you, or working with a director that really trusts you and lets you lead um, that side of things. Um, if you don't work with, I guess, either of those types of people, it really is then left up to chance if it's going to work out the way you want it to work out. Because unless you put it in your contract that you're in charge of the color,
Mm.
which is something people do, and
Do you do that?
I think in the future for sure, I think it might be something I would like to do. That I definitely have some sort of input in and say in post, but I think that's mostly going to be in narrative situations. I think
Yes.
commercially, the people who are the agencies and the client, they have the final say. It's their product, it's their film. So
Yeah.
that's got to be understood. But yeah, like I think it's hard obviously in the come up when you're just finding your collaborators and you're just working with all sorts of people. Some of the jobs are going to be so sick and you're going to be so happy with. But there are going to be those jobs where you two have just two different types of taste and you thought it was going to go this direction and they thought it was going to go a completely other direction and unfortunately 'cause they're the director and a lot of the times when we're working in that sort of lower budget world the director is also the financier. They're also like putting their own money, so who are we to
Yeah.
say we don't want it to look like the way you want it to look like? Unfortunately, it's a tough position to be in. um but yeah, like really it's just making sure that you both have the same taste or making sure that they really just trust you to lead the way.
Yes, 100%. And when you are hiring crew, um, what do you look for? In maybe we go specifically for lighting, maybe gaffer.
Mhm.
When you are looking for a gaffer to work with, what kind of skills do they need to bring to the table?
think I think it's I think I like to split it into like there's sort of like the technical skills and then there's the interpersonal skills. So obviously from a technical point of view, just someone that understands lighting really well, like or at least much more than myself, and has that sort of same taste as well, as myself, or at least likes to work the same way in terms of figuring out the project from a creative point of view. Like, do we like it moody and dark, or do we want to make it more high key and poppy? Um, and then on the interpersonal side, it's having someone that, is a good leader, it's a good knows how to communicate, um, knows how to yeah, delegate and plan ahead and have options ready. If maybe I might ask for one light but has two or three other lights ready just in case, because I would change my mind, and also knows my tendencies, has some neg fill on the go, has a dash ready for some warm fill. Basically someone that knows me, to that said, or is at least willing to sort of have the conversations with me to develop that camaraderie and understanding. Um, but yeah, it's kind of split between obviously technical proficiency and ability to communicate and give time to pre-production.
Yeah, that's very true. When you are you a person that owns equipment, or are you a person that uh, is rather rents out equipment for the shoot? So a lot of people buy, like at some point when they are higher level, they are buying their own bigger cameras so they can bring them to the set to make maybe a bit more profit out of the project. Do you
Yeah,
con-
I
what
think
what are your thoughts about that?
I think that's more common in like the commercial world. And I work in like I want to be working in commercial and in the narrative, but long-term focus for me is narrative stuff. So I want to be making films and TV shows. If you had to tell me which one would I want for the rest of my life, so for me, it was actually the opposite. It was getting a decent camera at the start of my career and just being able to get those jobs. Because unfortunately, a lot of times you do get hired not because of your talent, but because you have equipment. And it's
Yeah,
kind of like the foot that gets you through the door. But then as I've sort of progressed a little bit, I have turned into someone that would rather just rent. And I put a lot of importance in terms of building relationships with people, um, and helping people out so that they can help you out. And that has led into, being able to choose whatever camera you want depending on what the project asks for. So that's my thoughts on it.
yeah. And you want to go into, is your goal long term to go into feature films?
Yeah, basically long form narrative is how I describe it. So like,
Okay, so not necessarily feature films, but
yeah, so
anything narrative that's longer than a like short film.
exactly, yeah. So like basically whether it's episodes of a television show or, feature films, but something where I can really craft the world and really develop something is kind of what I like to create and what I want to be focusing on.
Yeah. Are you a person that watches a lot of movies?
Yeah, I think so now for sure. Um, I watch a lot of movies, especially in prep for a big project. Is where I
Mm.
watch the
Yeah.
most amount of films. Um, but I'm watching all types of moving image. I'm watching TV shows, commercials, music videos. I try and
Yeah.
just um, consume as much stuff as I can to
Yeah.
download new information into my brain and to develop my taste. And ultimately, I feel as cinematographers, we are defined by our taste, like what you like, and that needs to keep developing. You can't just say, this is what I like and keep it at that. I want to find new things that I like.
Yes.
Um,
And do you, when you like something, I found it with myself a lot of, and I heard from a lot of other people as well. They take as many screenshots or and they put it into folders and try. Are you a person that does something like that? That saves the stuff they like in a specific folder and then have like a place where you can just scroll through it and see for some references or
yeah, absolutely. So like I I use so firstly I use Instagram a lot, mainly as for work,
yeah,
and the Instagram has a lot of different work on it from a lot of different people, and basically you can create folders in Instagram. So I've named one basically taste, and I go on it, and every time I see something that is interesting, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. Like basically, there's so much information and so much footage and so much work on Instagram that you almost get like desensitized to it. So then every
yeah,
time I see something that just collects my attention out of all the noise, I'm like, that must be, for me at least, that must be very good. And I save that. In addition to that, I'm a big fan of shot deck and frame set, and I'll always be just saving certain shots, or maybe I watch something. And when I watch films, I don't really save specific films for specific shots from films. It's more like how did that film make me feel, and
yeah,
that's what I'll remember from it. Um, like for example, I watched The Brutalist, and obviously there was a lot of amazing shots in that film, but I really just appreciated the film overall from the way it was cut, from the score, from the design of the shots from one shot to another. Um, that's kind of how I developed because as cinematographers, we're not image makers, we're not photographers. We help create stories. So it's like, how do we put clips, images in sequence to create feeling? So
yes.
yeah.
For someone who really wants to start out in the industry in London, um, what is a good place to uh, look for work, or what is the best advice you can give them to really find the jobs when they come out of film school that can help them grow their talent and maybe meet some people to which leads them to get on bigger projects and developing their skills?
Absolutely. I think you've got sort of two main ways to go about it. I think the first thing you got to do is figure out a branch you want to go. Whether that's camera, whether that's art, whether that's assistant directing, but figure out like a stem in terms of which direction you want to go, and that can change. But I think it helps if you stick with one thing for now, and then discover you want to change. I think if you're moving from camera to art to this and that, it can be a little bit stifling. I think once you figure out what you want to do, um, Instagram is the greatest source we have. Like, we are so privileged to be in an age where we can use this as opposed to like 20, 30 years ago, trying to imagine how much
Yes.
harder it must have been. So reach out to people. If you are in camera, reach out to first ACs, DPs, If you're in lighting, reach out to gaffers and Sparks and Best Boys. If you're in production design, same thing. Um, and you know, work on anything. Like, do not be too humble. Or sorry, do not be too prideful to work on a zero budget thing or a low budget thing. Those are where you're gonna first of all figure out is it what you want to do, and it's where you're gonna meet a lot of your collaborators that you'll be working alongside with for the next subsequent amount of years. So that's what I would say in that regards. And then if you're not someone that wants to work your way up crew and you want to just go straight into being a DP or being a director, it's still the same thing. You're gonna be a DP, but you're still gonna be a DP doing zero budget jobs and low budget jobs. And it's about working and finding your way of working and finding your collaborators and not being again too prideful to work on anything and anything to figure out what you like, how you like things to be done, what is your leadership style, what is your communicating style, how do you handle problems, because if you can't handle it in a low budget thing, how are you going to handle it when there's hundreds of thousands of pounds on the line or something, So that's kind of what I would say. It all
Yeah.
stems to whether it's working as a crew member or working as a head of department. It still starts with getting on set and working your way up. And there's websites as well that, they're sort of frowned upon, but when I was starting off, it's where I found a lot of work. I know Mandy for so many years is where I found a ton of work and shooting people as well. And then eventually that just turns into referrals, and then that turns into just people reaching out to you over time. And by that time, hopefully you've just made that community where
Yeah.
you're getting inbound work.
I would even say UK film work, and there's so many like branches from UK film like assisting work and like so many like they constantly keep posting jobs on their website uh, or on their account channel as a story, and you can just go directly on their story and message the people directly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Yeah.
do you think Instagram presence, a good Instagram presence, helps as a DP to get more jobs?
That's a good question. Not necessarily. Like, no, it's a tough one to answer. I think the real answer is like maybe ask producers because uh, I don't necessarily do. I think it might help with legitimacy, like similar to how we spoke about um, getting reps. But I think ultimately what gets you more work is your portfolio and what you
Yeah,
have to show. Like Um, if if you're doing your best to get your name sort of out there and you're still just not getting work, it probably means that your portfolio still needs to needs to be developed, um, so that the people who you want to be working for can resonate with your work.
yeah,
That's all it is. It doesn't even mean that your portfolio isn't good or bad or whatever. It's just more like if you want to work with such and such people and they're the type of people that you're trying to reach out to, means for them your work's not ready yet and you got to keep developing. Um, and you could have 10,000 followers, but if they go down to your work, you might get the conversation, you might get the meeting with 10,000 followers, but if they're not happy with the work, they're not going to hire you.
okay. That's a very good advice, I think, for a lot of people. A lot of people think I think social media is like so much like so important that everyone could hire you directly from that. But I feel like it happens like it happens sometimes, but probably not like so often as you would think. Um, to just to wrap this up, what are your favorite, your top three films of all time?
Oh, wow, tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Um, this is always changing.
Stuff that comes to your mind right now.
Yeah, the top three films that come straight to my mind right now, that I really enjoy. I won't say it's like of all time. So number one, I'll start with number three, probably is like The Brutalist. I watched that very recently.
Yes, such a good film.
really enjoyed that. Um, Number two would probably be There Will Be Blood. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the visual, the story, the direction. It's a big favorite of mine. And then number one is I watched recently This Is England. That film came out in 2006.
Oh yeah.
Loved just again the story and
Yeah.
how it's put together and the visuals in a very different way. And again, I wouldn't say these are my favorite films of all time, but they're definitely the three favorites I can think of right now that come to my head.
Okay, we take that. Okay, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Ola Shoyinka, or my website, olamideshoyinka.com. But yeah,
Amazing. Thank you so much and have a lovely evening.
thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.